So I hope I'm not going to offend anyone by saying Intel has not particularly done well over the last 5 years, right? You can see it's down 60%, nearly 60%. Revenue has been declining, and it's also become unprofitable, right? Now, it's not bankrupt yet, and it's not even particularly close, right? I can see a few key ways Intel can turn things around. Actually, 2 key ways. That's what we're going to go over in this video. I'm assuming all of you have some baseline understanding of what Intel does. If you don't, I would recommend you do some research on that. They do computing stuff, but if you want to know more than that, we're not really going to go over that in this video, at least in too much detail. So I would recommend you have a somewhat understanding. Right. So let's take a look at what they've done as of recent. This is Intel. I scrolled down earlier, just making sure I'm not giving you the wrong company. So we can see it's become unprofitable in the recent quarters, negative 46. Yeah, it's not particularly good. They missed pretty substantially. However, the next quarters, they've guided pretty well, right? That's why there's some optimism. The stock was up nearly 8%. So there is some optimism there. However, the key thing I'm looking at here is revenue, $54.25 billion. That is a lot. Now, it has declined a bit, but that is a lot of revenue. It really should not be that hard for Intel to make some money off of that, right? And if they do, there's a lot of upside. So, for example, AMD, I follow that company relatively closely. I'm an investor in that company. They're going to do high 20 billions, so substantially less of what Intel does. They are currently worth 230 billion. Now, yes, they have a bit of an inflated PE. It's not 130. It's like closer to 50 with that. So that they do have a high PE, but however, they have been growing a lot since 2015. A lot since 2015. So they demand a high premium. Maybe that's too much. I'm not saying it is or isn't. I'm just saying that's the reality. Now, if you assume that Intel can make, they don't even have to make the same margins that AMD does. They don't. If they did even half as good as what AMD did in terms of margins, they would be worth twice as much, right? Because they do twice as much revenue. Even if they weren't valued at the same, right, they would still be valued way more because AMD's worth 2.5 times more. Like I said, they do half as much revenue nearly. Not quite half as much, but like there's a lot of upside here. And that's part one. Well, the other half of part one for them to turn things around is leadership. Because the way you get there, I mean, yes, you have innovation, yes, you have it, but you need better leadership. And I'm not just talking CEO, I'm talking throughout the company, from the lowest person to middle management to upper management to CEO. I'm not saying the CEO needs to be fired. I don't know. I know there's a lot of conflicting sentiment there. Some people think he's terrible. Some people think he got a terrible situation, is making good moves. I don't have an opinion on that. However, there is some leadership faulty in AMD as of recent, and that is just fact. But if you can do those two things, I think they're tied together. I think if the leadership improves, the revenue, the profit margins will improve. And I believe if you see that increase in margin and you can see that increase in profitability, it's tied to the leadership improving, because you don't do 54 billion in revenue and not make any money unless you're Amazon on purpose, right? Because they're in a completely different industry. The industry Intel's in, you should be making money off this. You just absolutely should. All right, so that's part one, leadership tied together with margin. You'll see a lot of upside there. And the other one, which should be clear to most of you, and there's a lot of people invested in Intel for this reason, is the foundry business, right? So assuming you know what that is, I'm going to do a little bit of a background, right? TSM, absolutely dominant right now. Samsung does some as well. They're not profitable. They're not doing well. They're thinking about cutting back. I want to do a video on an article about that, but you can't even really invest in Samsung in the United States. It's basically impossible. So it's not even worth really covering it, except for TSM, right? TSM does upwards of 70, I think it's well over 70% of the advanced chips, 3 nanometer stuff, aiming for 2 nanometer stuff. They do 70+% of all of it. And Intel uses that right now. AMD does, Nvidia does, and then therefore everyone who buys products from those companies, so every one of the Mag 7 right now, right, is tied to that. So it's a very important business. And with the CHIPS Act, Intel is getting money from the U.S. government for that. The U.S. government is thinking about giving them more money for that because they want, geopolitically, they want it built in the United States. TSM has a factory in Arizona, and it's doing well. However, it's not enough. If Taiwan was invaded by China, that's the main issue. They're worried about China. They don't want to go to war, all-out war with China over Taiwan, although we would have to right now because our economy would basically blow up without TSM. Maybe a bit of an exaggeration, but honestly, not really. So the foundry business is super important. The U.S. government wants it here, and they aren't just going to throw money at TSM for it because TSM, they want a lot of their stuff in Taiwan. So that's just the reality of it. So the only unfortunate side of that is I believe as of right now, I could be wrong, Intel is aiming for profit or break even, around 2027 for foundry business. So that's a longer outlook. And honestly, if you don't think their leadership's going to turn everything around elsewhere, I would maybe wait till later 2025 to start investing in Intel. Of course, it could go quicker. It could come quicker if leadership turns things around. However, foundry business, it takes years, and it's just the way it is. You need so many huge machines. You got to train up people. You have to build ginormous. It takes so much time to build those things up. And then once they're open, it takes years to ramp up production. So you may say 2027 sounds bad. That's just the way it is with this sort of business. So, however, there is a lot of upside with the foundry business. I know a lot of people are invested in Intel for that reason specifically. However, if either one of those two things is successful, leadership, and certainly leadership, you'd want it for both, right? Leadership is the main driver in any company. However, if you can hit on one of those things, you can get the margins back up on this revenue and maintain this revenue, or you get the foundry business up, this company will be worth significantly more than it is today. Will they do that? I do not know. I am considering putting money in Intel, but I think I would do it more so for the foundry business, and I would think I would aim for a longer time frame than this. I do invest in this sort of, I love tech stuff. I love specifically semiconductors. As of today, this is uninspiring. I generally like to invest in companies that have a track record of consistent growth, consistent success, right? However, Intel's starting to get to a place where there's just so much upside if they do turn things around. But do I know if they can do it? I do not. I don't know. I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they won't. However, it's pretty clearly and it's pretty easy to see a way where they will. So that's all I got for this video, guys. If you are new here, I'd appreciate it. If you like this and want similar content, I do all sorts of stuff on this channel. So go ahead and subscribe, right? If you just enjoy the video, I'd appreciate if you left a like. It helps the video performance out a lot. But I appreciate all of you for watching this far. So anyways, I'll catch all you guys later. Thanks for watching.